everyone. Welcome to the Epic Vision Zone. My name is Jane Applegath, a former award-winning stockbroker, television producer, scriptwriter, yoga instructor, and serial entrepreneur, now founder of the Epic Vision Zone. Each show, we offer you an inspiring person or message to bring you closer to your big dream by showing you how to enter the portal to your new epic reality. This is the place where possibilities, prosperity, and potential reign so that you can hit the go button on your epic life. Thank you all for joining us here today. Abraham Lincoln said, "The best way to predict your future is to create it." Mike Schindler is a U.S. Navy veteran, author of 2 highly endorsed books, and the national podcast host of The Military Wire, featuring interviews with America's most elite men and women who have served this country. Since 2012, Mike has helped local, state, federal agencies, as well as Fortune 500 companies improve team morale and retention. His prepare, plan, and execute with purpose and passion has helped well over 10,000 individuals realize their true mission, purpose, and identity in life, leading to happier families and more solid financial standings. Known throughout the U.S. as a subject matter expert on leadership development, negotiation secrets, and veteran transition issues, Mike is also the co-executive producer of the groundbreaking film titled It's VUCA, The Secret to Living in the 21st Century. Featuring 15 national experts on how to navigate chaotic times, this incredible film explores both the problems of our volatile world and the answers to thriving in it. Featured in USA Today, CBS Radio, Entrepreneur Radio, the Lars Larson Show, the Boston Globe, Q13 FOX, Yahoo Finance, and many more, the VUCA system to finding success is through vision, understanding, clarity, and adaptability. I am so thrilled and excited to welcome Mike here today and to get deep dive into VUCA. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, well, thank you, Jane. I am so excited to be here. Thanks for having me on your show.
Well, we're excited to have you here and honored. And thank you so much for your service and wanting to get into this VUCA. First of all, you got out of the military and you founded Operation Military Family. Tell us about that and your passion behind it.
Yeah, when I first got out of the service, the military is so amazing in that it teaches us, mission, purpose, identity, right? We get in and the military gives us a purpose, says, okay, this is what you're going to do. In my case, it was help save the world from bad people, right? We're going to give you a mission, whatever commander's intent is. And then your identity is really whatever your rank is, right? Whatever your rank is or what your MOS is for those who are in the Army. So when I got out, all that was kind of stripped away, right? So, got into college, met my wife, and then I was so used to high octane environments that I got into the only thing I thought could maybe satisfy that, which was startups. And so I got into the startup trade. And so that is certainly, you're either chasing money, chasing alcohol, chasing both, just trying to figure out, gosh, how do I, solve this hole in my soul? And we founded the organization in 2006 when my best friend deployed to Afghanistan. He was the officer in charge of all the medical facilities over there. And so he deployed, and I thought, gosh, wouldn't it be kind of cool to write a book? Never having written a book before, I realized it was a very painful process, but I had a great editor, had a great team who coached and guided me along the way. The book came out, was endorsed by General Tommy Franks, General Corelli, a number of different high-level individuals. And they thought I was this marriage expert, which my wife thought was super funny. And they put me on this tour, essentially for 2 years, because I was both now a corporate leader, what they considered a corporate leader, having worked in the startups and having done okay. And now teaching from these interviews. We did like 92 interviews to get that book. And we found best practices, and we put those best practices in that first book, Operation Military Family, how military couples are fighting to preserve their marriages. And so then we started doing tours around the country on just working on keeping families strong, because we figured if we keep the family strong, the nation's strong. And then the organization kind of evolved over that. So pretty amazing experience.
Wow, that is so beautiful, that you found that through, different stops and starts. I mean, it's interesting because really most of us don't have a clear path. It's a zigzag, but we use those tools and what we've learned to put into other things, which of course we'll get into VUCA shortly. But I just found that fascinating, that story of how, you didn't just jump out of the military or your service and then find your calling, but you needed that adrenaline and you needed that purpose, which is what the service gives individuals. And I never thought of that, being in the military, that it does give you a purpose, something to aim for. So interestingly enough, that leads right into our next question, which is, you said earlier to me that when you know what it means to be me, it changes everything. And that just touched my soul, because that is such an amazing and such a powerful statement. Give us some insight into what that means to you and how it transforms a person.
Yeah, so when you know what it means to be you, right, it changes the world, and it changes the world in this way. And I think many of us struggle. People will oftentimes say, "Geez, you've co-executive produced a movie, you were in a movie, you've written books, you've helped over 10,000 people. How did you get there? You must get lucky, right?" That is through failing forward, right? Continually failing forward is this whole principle of never giving up, right? So for me, when I say when you know yourself, you only really know yourself when you're in the pit, when you're walking through the mud, when you're going through, it's easy, I say it this way, it's easy for people to have faith when your world's in good order, right? So it's really to have faith and trust when your world's in good order and everything, the bill and everything's looking good. But you suddenly really discover who you are in the muddy moments of your life. And, we had muddy moments. We had moments where, when I was developing the nonprofit and I was still contracting and I was in the startups, we had an amazing event hit in 2008, if most people remember that. And that was the big housing crisis, right? Yeah. Well, gosh, my primary investment was in the real estate software development industry. Well, what took a big hit? The real estate market, which means that our software company just flatlined, and we lost a fortune. And we were able to survive that, but it was then moving through that and then getting into government contracting and pivoting and starting to make great money again. But I was on the road all the time. I was essentially deployed away from my family for 10 months and making tremendous money, but also drinking a lot, right? Because I didn't know who I was. And I was like, man, I'm just, I'm making money. I'm trying to satisfy this. I'm doing this. But then sequestration happened. And 4 out of our 5 contracts got indefinite suspensions. And so now what, right? Now I'm featured in these magazines, or I'm on, USA Today, and we're making all this amazing stuff, but I'm coming home and I'm like, man, all my contracts are gone. I'm sitting at home. I've got a certain amount of money saved. We can navigate this. But there was a point we couldn't navigate it. And Jane, there's no feeling like driving up to your house that's got crown molding, a pool in the backyard. You see tailored grass, everything else, and you see a yellow notice on your door that says you're being evicted. Mortgage company, they're coming after you, right? And thinking I'm an absolute failure. But in the eyes of the world, gosh, so lucky to be you, right? And in those pit moments when we're packing boxes and we're moving everything into a moving van, and I got all my friends helping me, and my wife is devastated, right? Because I'm following my dream, following my passion, and it seems like the whole world's ending. We find this house, and it was an old drug house. And I'd spend 2 weeks just cleaning it up and peeling wallpaper off, and and people are like, yeah, but then you're on stages. And I'm like, yeah, and I was on stages having to motivate people, and every time I was motivating them, I was motivating me, and I was learning the same things that they were. I was just the conduit. So everything that we teach, everything that we preach, as some people say, are things that we do. Why do we do it? Because we grow from it. We learn from it. We've developed and figured out what works and what doesn't work. And it was only through those experiences, Jane, that I learned who I was. It was in the pit. It was in that dark moment when I had $14 in my pocket and I'm meeting some guy, and this guy, Jim, who's one of my best friends to this day, changed my life. And that $14 helped us raise over $2.5 million and put us back on the map. And amazing things happened from that. And it hasn't always been easy. But you know what? When the vision is big, the circumstances don't matter. Because your happiness isn't based on things. Okay, your happiness is based on who are you at your core.
Right. Wow. That is so incredible, Mike. Thank you for sharing that. When your vision is big, the circumstances don't matter. So incredible. I can see this passion coming through now for what you're doing today. And we're going to get into
Yeah.
that very shortly. But and I feel you, because we went through the same thing. And I'm sure many individuals listening in on this went through and experienced that in '08. It was the crash of the world. I mean, it was
Yeah.
really, really. We actually, just to share a little insight, we packed up and had to move back to Canada because we're
Oh,
originally from
wow. Yeah.
Toronto.
Yeah.
And my husband was in the luxury construction home business. So
Yeah.
much like
Yeah.
yourself, it was like crickets. It was so surreal. It was really like a movie. Everything just, one day it was boomtown, the next day it was nothing. It was like
Yeah.
companies it wasn't just the laborers. It was the door manufacturers, the window manufacturers, the speculative builders who had tons of loans with the banks. They just came in and shut them down. And yeah, and the only place we could get work was in Canada, because Canada was one of the few.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was like, woof. But absolutely, you're right. I mean, it just, when you're down there, when you have a purpose, when you have that vision, you're absolutely right. The circumstances don't matter, because that's what gets you up out of bed in the morning. That's what motivates you. And I love that you said that you would have to get up and go and motivate individuals, and that would charge you, because it's true. We're
Yeah.
like a battery. I mean, if we can
Yeah.
provide for others what we need, it's interesting, because my yoga instructor always said to me, we teach what we need. And I never forgot that.
Yeah.
And so that's
Yeah.
exactly it. So beautiful. Thank you so much. So, leadership and why it matters. As an expert on leadership development, share with us why leadership is such a vital part of everything in our life. And I wanted to say it also includes leadership of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. Why is it so important? Because everything rises and falls on leadership, right? I know that you and I know people, and even there's times that I've experienced bad leadership. I've had to serve under bad leadership when I was, just emerging through corporate America, and I would evaluate what's going on in the leader. And what I find so amazing is, in leadership, if a great leader is somebody who is quick to listen, slow to speak, right? They are essentially doing what we call the OODA loop. They're observing their team. They're getting themselves oriented to every situation. They're making decisions based on what they know, what they observe, and then they're acting on those decisions. And all through that, they're empowering their team. And so we have a great leader is a leader who trains their team and then trusts their team. And that's everything, I believe, Jane, rises and falls on leadership. So people need to spend and invest time on becoming better leaders. Because when you become a better leader, the whole world's improved. Your environment, your personal life. And when I say leadership, it's just not in corporate. It's just not in corporate world, right? Like we've got two daughters, and we have to lead. We have to lead by example. What example are we setting? So leadership is critical, I believe, and not enough. And sometimes people read a book and they go, I've got it nailed. I'm a perfect leader. Leadership happens in those dark moments, right? Leadership it's one of the reasons why we made the film, is because we wanted to say, no, you really discover who you are as a leader when you're faced with a ton of chaos, a ton of uncertainty, a ton of just, what if I make the wrong decision? I joke and I say leadership, and I had a great mentor, Jane, who said, Mike, let me give you the secret to leadership. And I said, oh, okay, great. I'm sitting on the edge of my seat. I'm waiting. What is it just going to be this, aha moment? He said, a lot of leadership is you need to make a decision and then work like heck to make it the right decision. I'm like, oh, is that it? He goes, well, there's a lot more to that. But that's part of leadership, is you are going to have to be on the edge of your comfort zone as a leader in order to inspire your team.
Yes, absolutely. Because if we don't move from that comfort zone, we're not growing, we're not changing.
Yeah, that's right.
If we're not experiencing the challenge, we're not going to get the change, because that is where the change happens. Therein lies the change. And I heard recently that we are all work in progress, always throughout our lives. It never ends. We are all a possibility. It's all of that. But I love that you said that leaders are quick to listen and slow to speak. Wow, you are absolutely right. Because that makes a good leader, and they're actually listening. They're not just nodding and saying yes, oh yes, and then they had the thought in their head and it's not even relevant to what you were speaking about. But yes, absolutely, I agree with you 100%. So let's get into the 21st century and where we are here today. How do you see the 21st century unfolding?
So much faster than the 20th century, right? I mean, and some of your listeners are people like, really? That's what we're going to get? No, I mean, we really do reveal the secret to living and leading in the 21st century. And the 21st century, what we have to realize is, and we all know this, I think inherently we know this, is in technology, we used to say, hey, look, technology evolves every 18 months, right? There was a period of time where we said, hey, technology evolves every 18 months. Well, now that's happening every couple of weeks, every month, right? Faster and faster. And so Stephen Kotler and Kurzek and a number of these amazing, wise individuals that study this for a living have said that in the next 10 years, we're going to have 100 years of technological growth. So if you look at it in a continuum, historically, we've approached living in linear steps. Like if I take one step, I go one step, right? I go 1 foot, I take 2 steps, 2 feet, right? 3 steps, 3 feet, that type of thing. Well, now everything is exponentially growing. It's on an exponential scale. And so people over the last couple of years, we all experienced this global pandemic. The whole world flipped upside down. And people are like, oh my God, there was a lot of massive change over the last, 2 years. And I go, yes. And guess where we are in the continuum? You essentially went from 2 steps to 4 steps. The next jump is 4 to 8. So if you thought the last 2 years were insane, hold on to your hats for the next decade. So what does that mean? You've got to be agile. You can no longer say, hey, this wasn't the plan. My wife and I talk about this often because she'll say, well, that wasn't our plan. I'm like, what? Plans change. And so as humans, we have to acknowledge, number one, and number two, we have to accept that our plans are going to change. So we have to be clear on where we're going, but how we get there, we need to be flexible. So that's where we also tell teams is, hey, listen, you got to be fixed on the mission, but flexible on the method. Because when you're fixed on the mission, you know where you're going, but you need to be flexible, super flexible on the method. How you get there might change.
Oh, yeah. That's a fabulous quote, because it is going to change. I mean, really, in today's world, it is, we get bombarded with one thing after another. And of course, this is where we get into VUCA and perspective. But absolutely, if you're not flexible, you're going to break or you'll be left behind, one or the other. But it's not going to be applicable, because when you cannot use that model. The old model was more based on predictability, but now we're living in an unpredictable world. So you're right, the flexibility is key. And this is where VUCA comes into play. So what is VUCA, and how did it become the inspiration for your groundbreaking film?
Yeah. So what is VUCA? So the story behind this is Chris Nolan and I, he's a 3-time Emmy Award-winning producer, writer out of Hollywood. He and I were working on this documentary, co-writing it, storyboarding it. We really hadn't gotten very far into it, called The War Within, which was going to explore the internal and external battles that veterans face when they get out, right? So what are the external deals and what are the internals? And then when COVID hit, the whole world changed, as we talked about. Everybody's schedules, like people would wake up and like, our kids aren't going to school, and now they're going to school on a computer, or our vacation plans have changed, or I can't go to certain places because they're closed. The whole world had flipped. So Chris had called me. I was on my way with my family to Utah, and Chris called me and said, hey, listen, we need to do it on VUCA. And my experience in the Navy, I had never learned the term VUCA while I was in. And what's interesting is it's an Army War College term that was coined in '87 at the fall of the Soviet Union. When that was falling, they said it's going to be very volatile times, it's going to be very uncertain times, it's going to be very complex times, and it's going to be ambiguous. And the military loves acronyms, and they said, okay, we're going to call it VUCA. And so Chris said, we got to do it on VUCA. And I said, well, sure, because we're living right in it. And that prompted us to just find some of the best thought leaders who were familiar with the term. And we started with General Casey, who teaches it at Cornell. Phenomenal teacher of it. He was the 36th Chief of Staff of the Army. He had gotten out, and he took my call, and he invited me out. We interviewed him, and he kind of kicked off the film for us. So when you watch the documentary, you'll see he's one of the first people that are on there. And we said, VUCA, really the way to navigate VUCA, these uncertain times, which I believe all your audience has experienced. I don't think anybody went through the past couple of years unscathed and said, oh no, these were perfect times, right? I think everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's so crazy. It only seems like it's getting crazier. A couple months back, we were talking about pandemic. Now we're talking about, potential nuclear war, and what's going on with China, and what's going on with Taiwan, and what happened in Japan. And look at all this stuff. This is crazy. And I'm not sure, gas prices and economic upheaval and social upheaval. And it's just bombarding us, right? And I don't want to scare your listeners, but it's only going to accelerate. It's only going to compound. And our brains are not geared, they're not wired for 30,000 inputs. Things that happen overseas used to take months to get to us, right? Or weeks. And now they're in an instant, right? The things that happen in Japan, we know a second later, right? And all of a sudden our brain's like, oh my gosh, what do I need to do? And that affects our neuroscience. And then suddenly our body's reacting like, well, what's going to happen here? And we begin to, and our brains are they're negative 5 times, they're wired 5 times more negative than they are positive, right? So then we always go to the bad scenario. So we looked at it and said, well, wait a second. So that's the environment, but how do you combat it? How do you combat VUCA? Like, you can't just you can't embrace the negative. So how do you embrace the positive? And what the cool part is, Bob Johansen coined this years ago, is he said, well, how you combat VUCA is with VUCA. And we're like, okay. Well, that's vision, understanding, clarity, and adaptability. So have a yin and a yang, right? So you have a positive and a negative. And so when it's very volatile, that's where you have to focus on vision. I understand the situation is really volatile, but I got to focus on vision. Okay. Well, it's uncertain. I know. So how do I gain understanding in the uncertainty? Right. Well, it's complex. I know, but complex situations, you can break them down so you gain clarity. Okay. And if it's ambiguous, that's okay. You just have to be adaptable. You've got to be agile. You got to work through it. And that's why we say when the vision is big, okay, the circumstances don't matter, but clarity is key. Clarity only happens when you have clear vision. So we tracked down, and I think it's actually 17 leaders that we have in that film, where we said, okay, we're going to tell the story of VUCA because we want to give people hope, but just beyond hope, we want to do more than just deliver hope. We want to give you a practical, tactical way that you can navigate this 21st century, because 20th century thinking is not going to solve 21st century problems.
No, absolutely. And what I like to call it is the new era of leadership, because it's,
Yeah, I love that.
yeah, it really is, because that's where we're headed. We're headed into uncharted water, basically, in every, in industry, in life, in science, in the world powers. We're headed into uncharted waters. So this type of a system, this type of a program is what's needed to set us on our way to finding our way. As funny as that sounds, because like you said, you might have the vision, but you've got to be flexible to change that course if it requires it. And believe me, like, it's going to change. The course is going to change, but that doesn't mean the end goal is going to change. So I absolutely love this. And it is so powerful, because all of us are going to need a map, for lack of a better word, because a map is it gets you from A to B, but this map is basically a blank sheet of paper. I mean, that's what we're facing today in the 21st century. Here's your map. Now we're going to start here, but as we go along through our life, it's going to change. So yeah, it's got to be a new kind of map, the virtual map.
Oh, totally. And Jane, and sometimes people think that's really scary, but I'm like, wait a second, you're a human. Like, this is ingrained in your DNA. We've just been so comfortable these last 50, 60, 70, 80 years that we've not really had to tap that pioneer spirit. So if you think about it, people used to pioneer all the time, right? They would come from Europe to this new land, and they go from Texas to Oklahoma, and that was a journey because they didn't know what was in the way, right? They had no idea what they were going to experience. I remember taking a trip down to Tombstone. They're in Arizona, and what's interesting is Wyatt Earp and I had the same birthday, and so I was totally fascinated by his character, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so I'm thinking, as I'm leaving Tombstone, driving out, and I'm thinking, man, he ended up in Alaska, which means that he got on his horse and he rode until he got to the boat, right? And he's riding across desert, and every day is a new day, right? But he's like, he doesn't know what he's going to face that next day. And see, we've been so used to predictability in our lives that we've not had to tap that human spirit of, wait a second, you're capable of this. Mark Divine says it beautifully. He says, listen, we have gotten so soft, we don't realize that we are 25 times more capable than we think we are. And it's so true. We really are, that we have a breakthrough moment, and we call those micro wins, and we're celebrating. But if we looked at like our grandparents, or if I looked at my grandparents, they lived through the Great Depression, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you guys did that? if somebody went through that today, we'd be like, oh my gosh, that's so inhumane. And I'm like, the whole country was living this way. And they weren't complaining. They were getting up. They were doing their part. They were helping out other people. That's the human spirit that we have to tap, is understand that, number one, you are capable. You are far more capable than you think. And when you get the right mentorship around your life, it's amazing. You might actually be the one that helps lead us into the golden era. You might have a different Kennedy moment. We're on the brink of global war, right? The Cuban Missile Crisis, the whole world's freaking out, which sounds pretty similar. And Kennedy, in his brilliance, said, you know what? We're going to put a man on the moon. And the whole world went, oh, that's amazing. Well, yes. And suddenly they kind of forgot that, we had this little Bay of Pigs thing and things going on over here. And Kennedy's like, no, we're going to put a man on the moon. Why? He was brilliant in that he cast vision. Right. And that's what we need to do in our families. We need to cast vision for our families. We need to cast vision for our community. We need to cast vision for our teams. And then we need to put the work behind it. It's not enough to just be a vision caster. Now you have to do the work to help them execute on it. You got to prepare, you got to plan, and you got to execute.
Yes, absolutely. Wow, that was fantastic. You are absolutely right, Mike. I had not thought of that, but we have lost our pioneering spirit. And it's because we live in a comfort zone for the last 15 years. We've been living in a comfort zone. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's now that we're soft, we get scared because things aren't what they were. And what do you mean we can't take the kids to school? What do you mean Ukraine is being bombarded by missiles from Russia? What do you mean that gas is going through the roof? And pioneering spirit. This is what they did. You're right. They would take their horses and their I want to say buggies, but it's not buggies. Like it's a word.
It's wagons and
yes, they're wagons. Yeah. Thank you. They're wagons.
Yeah.
And they would just head out into the unknown. I mean, it's like with the threat of Indians and disease and goodness knows what else. But there were thousands of them, and thank goodness for that. But you're right. Oh my gosh, that was a great way to put it. I love that. So we are pioneering our way through the 21st century. Yes. Let's all get our cowboy boots on.
It's true, but the cool part is we have more technology at our fingertips than ever before, right? I mean, this cell phone here has more technology than what put the man on the moon, essentially, which is amazing. So when people are like, well, I'm not sure how we're going to do it, or I'm stuck, there's no reason to be stuck except you're scared. And it's okay to be scared, but that's courage. So courage is not saying no to fear, right? N-O to fear. Courage is saying no fear and keep going. And what I mean by that is K-N-O-W, fear. No fear and keep going. It's moving off that X, your X being your comfort zone, and saying, no, you know what? I need to get going. I need to make this change. And I don't care if it's a personal change. I don't care if it's a professional change. I don't care if you're like, listen, I need to lose 10 pounds. Okay, then do it. Well, I'm afraid to give this up, or I'm afraid to do this, or what will people think? Who cares? This is the point of the pioneering spirit, is we need to be pioneers. Because it's only through that pioneering spirit that we conquer new lands, that we seize new dreams, that we change the world. There could be somebody that is listening to this right now that is on the brink of curing cancer or changing the way we fuel the country, something. And they're like, they're almost probably at the point of giving up. And I'm going to tell you, just keep going. Keep going. I mean, how many times did it take Edison to invent that light bulb? Right? I mean, when you think about that, these are people that's just failure after failure after failure. But what is it really? It's learning moment after learning moment, growth moment after growth moment. And we have to stop thinking that we got to get it right the first time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's perspective. Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's not a failure. It's well, like you said, failing forward. It's
yeah.
for one person said failure is fertilizer, which I love because
Oh, that's
that's
good.
a
Yeah,
isn't that great?
yeah,
So
yeah.
you may have answered this question, but how can VUCA change how we see the world?
Yeah, so when you understand, it's really it's here's how VUCA helps you change the world, or actually see the world, really, because you see it through a different lens. Is when you understand that VUCA is the environment you're living in, right? So you suddenly know that everything that you're experiencing is VUCA. It's VUCA. I don't care, name it. I'm going to tell you it's VUCA. Okay, I don't care if it's disease. I don't care if it's famine. I don't care if it's war. It's VUCA. Okay, that is VUCA. So now that you clearly understand, have named the environment, now you can develop an offensive mindset on how you conquer it. Well, how do you conquer it? Vision. See, most people, what happens is they go, well, this is my situation, my circumstance, and oftentimes we feel alone in it. And I'll tell you that you're not alone in whatever your circumstance is, but we oftentimes feel that way. We understand that the whole world is living in a VUCA environment. So now you have commonality. So now you realize, well, wait a second, I'm not alone in this, right? Number one, that's really important because now you can build relationship when you understand you're not alone. So, but when you have the framework to move forward, and the framework being, well, how do I combat this environment I'm in? Well, you combat it through vision, understanding, clarity, and adaptability. I just gave you the framework. That's just the bumpers, right? You got to go deep in those areas. There's a lot of work that happens there. You just don't make it, because people are like, well, how do I create a vision? Well, how do I gain understanding? How do I get clarity? How do I adapt, right? When it's not my nature to adapt. There's a lot that goes into that, no question. So I don't want people to think that, oh, yeah, just solve VUCA with VUCA. It takes work. But so does pioneering, right? That takes
Right.
work. And so you have to be willing to work it. But once you understand it, suddenly the anxiety drops because you're like, wait a second, I think I can get through almost any situation I'm faced with. So now you see the world as not overwhelming, but with opportunity. Because you're like, wait a second, while everybody else is kind of freaking out over here, I'm I, I'm seeing this in a different light. There's opportunity here. Now, whether it's opportunity for me to grow or whether it's opportunity to help solve a problem or to help impact a community, you begin to see the world. It's almost like Matrix, right? I mean, you begin to see the world differently. You just like, oh wow. Most people are walking through life a bit clueless, but I get it. And VUCA helps you see the world in an I get it mentality.
Right. Yes, that is so powerful. It helps you see the world and the possibilities. And like you said earlier, we are so much more powerful than we know that we are, or we believe that we are. And it's putting all of those pieces together to move us forward in the 21st century. So yes, absolutely. It's so vital to what we're seeing, but not only that, what we can see. So
Mm-hmm.
it's imagination. It's like I love the science and power of imagination, and that's why films are so powerful. So speaking of that, what sets VUCA apart from other documentary films in this type of realm? Because I know you want to
Yeah,
stretch
so
this to a lot more than just a film.
yeah, right. So the difference, we've had some people come back and say, hey, this is a lot like The Secret, or that's probably been the biggest comparison. And we say what's interesting about this film is, number one, it is based on proven methodologies that some of the most successful corporations have exercised, and certainly battle tested through our military exercises. So, number one, it's rooted in not just, and I don't want to call it foo-foo, but it's really rooted in science, and it's also rooted in proven methodologies. And so when somebody views this film, it's a little different than a bunch of talking heads. We've got historic footage in there. We've got some amazing thought leaders, best-selling authors, generals, Navy SEALs, neuroscience experts that all weigh in. And so when you're watching the film, we're taking you on this journey of almost like your own experience, and you're getting input from these amazing thought leaders that you suddenly go, well, wait a second, I can apply that to my life. Because everything in the film, we didn't want you to be just a viewer of the film. We want you to really be a participant in the film. And so that's how we wrote that film. 96-minute full feature documentary. Again, I'm a little biased. And when I say that I love the film, I love the film not because I co-wrote it and co-executive produced it, and yes, my family's in it. I love it because when I watch it again, I'm learning from it. And that's the power of a film, I believe. There's some entertainment film, and then there's some educational film. This is what we call, it's edu-entertaining, I think is what Chris calls it. Like, it's educational and entertaining at the same time. And it's one of those things that you could watch, and as soon as you get done watching, you go, yeah, I know how the film ends, but I got to go back and watch this again because I really need to lean into this one section, right? So I mean, I know everybody says their films are different. I would say that this one's different.
Yeah, no, it really is. I've watched it, and I had a pad of paper, and I just took notes and notes. And now I want to watch it and just watch it because it's packed with so much information. I could probably watch it at least half a dozen times and still find something new that I had either didn't hear it or something that I wanted to dive a little deeper into, because it does touch on so many aspects of not just leadership, but then you dive into the neuroscience, which is the brain, and how all of that functions. And then you dive into what to expect in the future and how fast things are moving. And and you've woven it all beautifully with the stories of your family and et cetera, et cetera. So it gives it that feeling of reality. But yes, it is on its own. It basically isn't a category all to itself, I believe. I mean, like you said, it is an educational film. It's a documentary, and it also has those experts that come in. So I just absolutely love it, and I have to watch it many more times now. Because I'm just like, you walk away from it and you're like, whoa, what was that? It's because there's so much fabulous information, and it's not whoa in a bad way. It's like, whoa, I got to go back and watch that again and again and again, because it's something of that nature that has to sink in and really connect with you. And that takes a lot as well. So the VUCA principles, I know you've mentioned them, but could you just repeat them again and touch a little bit on each one and why they are vital to success in the 21st century? And I know there's vision, understanding, clarity, and what's the last one? I forgot.
Adaptability.
Adaptability.
Yep.
There you go. So maybe just touch very briefly on each one.
Yeah, so there's positive and negative, right? So the negative side of VUCA, what we call the negative side of VUCA, which is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. That's what we call external forces. You won't change those. Those will always happen. Those are things that you can't control. You can have the best laid plans, and guess what? Plans change, right? We saw that with the pandemic. Everybody had best laid plans. They knew exactly what was going to happen until the whole world flipped upside down. That is negative VUCA. You can't change that. That external forces. What happens is most people spend so much time, energy, effort give so much attention to the external. Oh my gosh, this is happening. Oh my gosh, this is happening. That's right. You name it, right? Most people are locked into what we call below the VUCA line. Okay, negative VUCA, external. Okay, can't change it. I can train for the unexpected. I can plan for the unexpected, but I don't know when the unexpected is going to happen, right? The positive side of VUCA is vision, understanding, clarity, and adaptability. Okay, vision. What is the vision for your life? Okay, most people spend a gob of time planning a 2-week vacation when if I ask them, what does your best year look like, personally and professionally, I get a look like, I've never been asked that question. And I'm like, I know, but you have to start there, right? So you've got to have a vision for your life. What type of impact do you want to have? What type of, what legacy are you going to leave behind? Or are you just showing up every day and just, one more day? Okay. We've heard people say this before. Oh, just another day. Well, no, if you're here, there's another day of opportunity, impact, influence, aspiration. Okay. So vision is so key. What is the vision? And understanding when you create vision, all of a sudden you begin to go, how do I understand my situation so it promotes or gets me clearer or moves me closer to my vision? Okay. Then now all of a sudden you have a kind of an action plan, right? And then things are still volatile, right? They're still uncertain. They're pretty complex, but through these situations, you're still dealing with those external forces. You're gaining clarity because you're like, wait a second, how do I gain clarity? This is upside down, but how do I get a clear path through it so that I can accomplish what? My vision, right? And I need to adapt. Okay, here's my plan. Oh, that's not going to work. General Casey says there's 2 types of plans that might work and plans that don't work. And so if you approach this 21st century with that idea that, listen, I can have a plan. It's important to have a plan. Write it down. Okay, in the Navy, we'd say we'd have a napkin plan, okay, which means that we'd write out our plan, understanding clearly that 80% of it would probably fail, 20% would probably work. We just weren't sure which 80% would fail or which 20% would work. So we had to be very adaptable. We had to be agile. And that's what we have to be as humans today as we pioneer through this 21st century, because there's endless opportunity, endless. I mean, the things that we have on the horizon and the things that are present in present day are things that we've never had even a decade ago, even 5 years ago. Right. And you have that, we have that at our fingertips. And now it's important for you to cast a vision and then begin to put some meat behind it.
Yeah, thank you. That was beautiful. Just really lays it out. And of course, like you said, there's so much depth to each one of those principles. But just giving people an idea of where to start and how they can unfold this incredible VUCA program or principles, it really gives them something to look forward to, because that's really, I believe, what leads us in our life is having that mission, having that vision. I always say to people, what do you want the next year to feel like? Because the feelings are our energy, and you start there. Because if they can feel into what they want, then they can visualize what they want. Because our energy and what the message, the frequency that we're sending out is key to bringing forth our vision. That's really, I think, deeply rooted in vision, because when you have something that's that powerful, you draw it to you. That's,
it's true. We do attract.
Yes, exactly. And I know you have a number of experts in the film. Just give us an idea of a few of them and a little bit of why they were chosen, because I do love to hear from the experts in there. So just touch up on a few of them that are in there that really ring your bell, so to speak.
Yeah. Oh, sure. So, I've got all of them are favorites for different reasons. But, General Casey, he was the 36th Chief of Staff of the Army. He had really transformed the Army, certainly how we conducted operations in Iraq, and certainly throughout Afghanistan. He teaches VUCA as a master's level course. It's a 2-week course. master's level at Cornell, exceptional teacher, exceptional leader. Mark Devine is another one of my favorites. He was the honor man in Navy BUDS training. They have an honor man that's somebody that takes his entire boat crew of 7 and gets them to graduate BUDS as well, which is unheard of. And he went on to create Unbeatable Mind, SEAL Fit, which is, they do phenomenal things there. He's certainly one of my favorites there. He talks a lot about flipping the script. And VUCA, he's truly one of this nation's leading VUCA experts. Shelley Willis is incredible. The work she's done with women and veterans, and just that whole component piece. Stephen Kotler and what he does through the Flow Research Institute. He's based out of Tahoe area. Flow Genome Project. He's another favorite. General Boykin, when he talks about courage and his whole experience that he experienced it, in with Black Hawk Down. Major General Bob Dees. I mean, I could keep going on and on. Dr. Robin Fenn. And what she does with cognitive, behavioral health and the importance of our health, our mental health. And, Rayut, she was IDF, Rayut, she, female who served in the Israeli Defense Force, right? And now she's one of the leading neuroscience experts out there. And she's talking about how the brain works, right? I mean, so many, I don't want to leave anybody out because they'd be like, hey, wait a second, you didn't mention me, but they're all amazing. For their very reasons. I mean, it's just such amazing, powerful stories that are in this film. And the experts, what they bring to it is just not the expertise, but the story behind it. Yeah. And we love stories. And so not only do we give you the science behind what we're talking about, but we give you the story behind it. And there's some stories in there, as you know, Jane, that most people are not familiar with, that when you watch it, you go, I had no idea. And it was that no idea moment that transformed the world or this country. And that's what I believe some of your listeners will also do when they get on the edge of their comfort zone and take that next step, and they go for it. And it's scary, because do I hold on to what I know, or do I let go into the unknown? And will I fall or will I fly? And it's to be determined.
Yeah.
So,
well, when they watch VUCA, they're going to fly because that
I believe
therein
so.
lies. Yeah, therein lies the power of VUCA. They say just take that one step off the ledge and your wings will sprout. So absolutely, yeah. There's one question here, Mike, that you shared a story with me earlier, and it was about $100 million. And it is such a profound story, speaking of stories, because we remember stories and how they move us, or how they, emotional experience, because that's energy in motion, right? How they move us emotionally. And this story is beautiful. And I would love for you to share this with our audience, to show them the core of why you do the work that you do.
Yeah. So the $100 million, it's so interesting. So probably about a decade ago, I was on a live radio show, and I say a decade. That seemed to be my default, and then I started adding up the years, and I think it was a little longer than a decade ago. But it was when my first book came out, so 2007, so which is over a decade ago. And I was on this live show, and the host, at that time, I was getting into these keynotes and being flown all over the place, and promoting the book and doing these workshops, and my fee was, I didn't think it was that much, but at the time, she thought it was, and she said, "What? It sounds like you want to make money on the backs of veterans." And my dad taught me something pretty profound for me. He says, anytime you get into a situation where you want to be defensive, change that to be curious. And so it took me years to develop that, but I became curious with that question, or that charge, essentially. And she said, well, how much, it sounds like, you want to make money off the backs of veterans. And I said, well, that's interesting, since I am one. And I was getting ready to say, walk me through that. But she cut me off and said, well, how much money do you want to make? And, Jane, I was kind of new to this whole thing, right? I knew how much money I had made, but I'd never put a number on it. And without even hesitating, it was like this Holy Spirit moment for me that she said, well, how much money do you want to make? And I said, $100 million. Like, it was like this response that just, I blurted out. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, $100 million. And she goes, $100 million. And I went, yes, $1 for every life we impact. And it changed the whole conversation, because it was actually very educational for me too, was that I'm really about impact. Now, if I take anybody that we've ever trained or coached over the years and they only charge them $1, they would not put any effort, energy into it, right? Because they don't value it. Because you can go down and I was going to say you get a cup of coffee for $1. I don't even know if you can do that anymore. But we put value into the things that we pay for. But the whole point of that story was $100 million, $1 for every life I impact, right? And it's about impact. And when you begin to make the money, you begin to have greater influence. You begin to have more opportunity. You begin to change lives in a different, profound way. And I think people should really embrace that. Is what's your impact going to be?
Right.
And
yes,
I've never forgotten that, $100 million. And so I have it up. I have it right here. I actually have it on one of my screens. If your audience doesn't believe me, I'll take it right down, but it's right here. If you can see it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See it.
Oh, that's
You're
right.
there. No,
Yeah.
the other way.
Yeah.
The other way.
Oh,
other way.
The other way.
There. That's it.
There.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Impact
So
is so. Yeah. It's so vital, but it's also it shows to me, what it shows is that this VUCA is really how you are going to impact and influence all those lives, because that is the movement. And when you can produce a movement, that's when you make the change, right?
Yeah, it's true. There will be people that are part of this project, this movement, as you call it, that will influence and impact lives that I will never know, but they will do it, as we say, plant seeds, right? You plant seeds and inspire others. And when you can inspire others, they will impact others that you never meet and never know. But it's through that, it's that ripple effect that we will change lives together. And I truly believe, what my team knows this, we have this saying, one team, one fight. It is that we are better and stronger together. And when we can team as leaders and inspire other leaders and this next generation that's coming up, we will change the world. And we'll change the world not because we want to put money in our pocket. That will happen too. But we will change the world because we're leaving it a better place for our kids and our grandkids and our great grandkids. And that's our charge, is to leave this. At least that's how I grew up. My grandparents, my parents always said, leave the room better than you entered it. And that's the same for our planet, is we need to leave this planet better, right, than we entered it. And we've got some work to do, but there's going to be opportunities to do it.
Yes, absolutely. It's very exciting. And so tell our audience, Mike, how they can gain access to VUCA.
Yeah, so if you go to itsvuca.com, VUCA, VUCA.com, you can watch the trailer there. You can get a hold of us there. You can see where you can view the film, which is like on Amazon Prime and iTunes and Roku and all these other platforms that I don't even know about. But you can view the film there. And after you view it, reach out. We'd love to help you. I think it's important that you view the film. And then if you're serious about making change in your life, then get a hold of us and we can have a conversation. So.
Fabulous. Well, yes, everyone needs to check it out. I got it on Amazon Prime. but it's accessible. You can watch it on your computer or watch it on your television. I shared it with my husband. We watched it together. And I have to watch it again now because, of course, my
Yeah.
notes are everywhere and I need to make more notes because it is so packed with great information. And it is it moves quickly as well. I mean, I want to get that point across because it is entertaining. It has great visuals. It's not a documentary where you sit there and you're just inundated and you feel heavy watching it. It's very well done. It's an Emmy award-winning director, and it's really, really well produced. So all around, it's a great film to watch. So thank you, Mike, for that. And just one question I have for you here. What excites you about the future?
Oh, the opportunity. I mean, without hesitation, is the opportunity. What excites me about the future is the opportunity that my daughters will have that I never did. Um,
Mm.
and I believe that they will be able to stand on the shoulders of giants. I'm not calling myself a giant, but I'm just saying that they. I look forward to creating a platform where they can um, excel based on the new platform that I created, because they will be able to achieve and do and influence in ways that I never could. And I think that's a mistake that we oftentimes make, is we say, oh no, you know, I had to go through this, so you must go through this. They still have a lot of life lessons to learn. Um, but as a parent and as a leader, I believe that um, it's our job to go ahead and create a platform so that other people can excel beyond our own success. It doesn't mean that we give them everything. And I want to be very clear on that. If you do, you'll ruin a generation. They have to work for every bit of it. But it doesn't mean that they have to start by living in a hole. You
Right.
could start them off at a platform so much greater, and they will experience their own holes, because it will reveal to them things that they haven't developed yet in learning who they are, right? So opportunity,
Yeah,
hands down, hands down.
I love it. That makes total sense. Opportunity and how exciting that is for the future. Yes, absolutely. Any last words, Mike, that you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, my last words are believe in yourself.
Mm,
You know, those are my last words, is believe in yourself. You know, when you look in that mirror, who do you see? And do you believe in that person? And if you believe in that person, then you should be pretty excited, even though your circumstances might not indicate that you should be excited. But if you're looking in that mirror and the person looking back and you go, you know what, this person's capable, then you've got opportunity that's right around the corner, probably that very day. So believe in yourself.
thank you. I love that. Yeah, you look in the mirror and you say, you know what, you're pretty damn good. That's what I
That's right.
would say. There's
That's
nothing
right.
like
Yeah.
making yourself feel great again, because that's what, you have to feel good about yourself before other people do. So that's really terrific. I love it. So because we're here on the Epic Vision Zone, Mike, I have one last question, and that is, if your life were an epic story, what would the title be?
Oh boy, if it was an epic story, what would the title be? Do you know how long and hard we wrestled over the title of our film? What would the title of my life be? Um, what would the title of wow. Uh, Gosh, I wasn't prepared for this question. That's a really good question. What would the
Thank you.
uh, what a stumper. But I've got it. I will tell you. Growth through circumstances. Uh,
Mm,
that would probably be the title. Is growing through circumstances, and that has really been probably my life. Is I
yeah.
think it's probably a lot of people's lives. But we can either be we can choose to either be defined by our circumstances, or we can grow through our circumstances. And I would see that, my epic title would be, no, he was one who grew through his circumstances. And from that
Mm,
growth, he impacted the world. And so,
mm,
it would have a subtitle,
yeah. I love that. That it's absolutely perfect. Okay, so now you've got to write the novel. So,
Right.
but,
Yeah. No, I'm still working on
but
another one. Yeah.
oh, great, great. Yeah, no, I asked that question, Mike, because, and you would get this. I love to get people to trigger their imagination, because when we take
Yeah.
them out of reality, that's when they let go. That's when the flow
Yeah.
starts to happen. When you start to ask the hard questions, what do you envision yourself to, how do you see success in the next 5 years? What are your core values? I'm sure you know all these questions. Those are rooted in your thinking brain. And right away, I know
Yeah.
when I'm asked those questions, I go right into my thinking brain, and I'm not experiencing flow, and I'm certainly not experience what I really feel. So I ask questions that actually get people to move into their imagination, so that it becomes something that's external, but it makes them
Yeah.
start to understand the power of that. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
I
brilliant. I
just
love it.
thank you. Thank you. I have so many individuals like yourself, and I'll ask them, and they're like, oh, wow, that's a great
Yeah.
question. I'm not sure, but it's terrific. I love it. Thank you so much, Mike, for joining us here today and being a part of the show. Everyone, be sure to check out VUCA. All of the website information will be available on the Epic Vision Zone bio pages. You can also retrieve it at the website itsvuca.com. That's VUCA. And connect with Mike. We'll have all of his, he's got the Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all of the social media platforms, and Twitter as well. And you can find his contact information. It will be available on our pages. And be sure to connect with me on Instagram at Jane Applegath. And don't forget to reach out to me at janeapplegath.com, where you can gain access to your free download of the Keys to Your Dreams. Looking forward to connecting with you soon. This is the Epic Vision Zone, transforming your dreams into epic success.